Whether you're pitching a product, negotiating a raise, or deciding which movie to watch, we all navigating the art of selling in one way or another. Welcome to Power of Soft Skills in Sales. I'm Evgeniy, your guide to unlocking the human side of selling. Here we explore the connection, communication, and collaboration skills that make interactions more impactful. Get ready for inspiring stories, teamwork tips, insight on trust, and actionable advice to help you sell smarter and connect deeper. Let's jump in. I have a pleasure to talk to George today about his journey in cybersecurity and communication as well. George, can you please introduce yourself and a bit about what you do?
Thank you for having me today. My name is George Plytas. I'm a 25-year cybersecurity consultant and practitioner. I've helped about 100 companies achieve compliance in some regard, whether it's SOC 2, PCI, ISO 27001, GDPR, and so on and so on. Currently, I'm the head of information security for a fairly large insurance company, but I also do a little bit of work on the side and try to simplify compliance for organizations. And I do that through proper communication and building trust. And I learned really early that solving technical problems is easy, but earning trust is not. That's a little
100%.
bit about myself.
No, that's a good introduction. And you mentioned the important part, compliance. Compliance, it's in many cases achieved as something bad, but it's not bad if it's done correctly because you can take the compliance, take the security aspect, merge them together, and achieve compliance and improve security in the same time as well. I do have a question. Soft skills is a very misleading topic for many people because some people say it's a human skill, it's a communication skills, it's a leadership skills. And I usually ask everyone, what is soft skills for you? And can you compare to maybe hard skills?
Well, it's the first of all, hard skills are hard skills. Those are your technical capability. You got to have that if you're going to be in the cybersecurity or a technical space. But communication and proper communication is the bridge between technical excellence and the client impact. So you could have a particular technology that you think that the client or internal client or external client, you know they need it, but if you can't explain it properly, they're not going to see the merits in putting in the effort and the cost of implementing it. It also builds trust. I'm going to keep saying that over and over again. Proper communication is trust. And especially in the face of adversity, if there's some type of adversity, like a compliance issue, or God forbid, a ransomware or some other type of cyber attack, the way that you are able to communicate will make the difference between having everybody rowing in the same direction or everybody going in different directions and beating to their own drum. And also, to me, personally and professionally, communication, it's about reading the room. You have to have a different communication style for different rooms. If you're talking to executives, you talk in a particular way. When you're talking to all the techies, that's a different thing. If you're talking to a regulator or an auditor, that's you put on a different face, different communication style. And I think personally, communication is the key to leading teams, winning deals, winning over internal stakeholders, external stakeholders. And when you have to navigate crisis, communication is key.
I think we can stop the podcast right now because we basically cover everything need to be done about communication and we can move over,
Okay.
okay?
Okay. All
But,
right.
but so first of all, I'm very happy where it's going. I have a lot of questions. You mentioned
Okay.
trust several times, and you told me, promised me that you're going to continue. So let's kind
Okay.
of dive in. What does trust mean for you? And maybe later on, we'll talk about what does trust mean with executive? What does trust mean with techie?
Well, okay. So another thing that I was talking about is different communication styles for different audiences. Okay. So the way that you're going to build trust with an executive team is very, very different than you're going to build it with the technical teams. Okay, so let's start with the easy one, which is the technical teams. You build trust with technical teams by showing your technical capabilities and understanding what the technical issue is. I don't know if executives know if you're going to move button from one page to another page on a web page, how much work actually goes into that, how many different variables there are. So when you are dealing with the technical audience, being able to show that you have the technical chops to be able to understand what they're asking. Why moving that one button might actually take 8 hours worth of work, where an executive will think, well, it's just, it's not that, just drag and drop it over. So I think with the technical audience, you have to show your technical capabilities and be able to explain to them that you understand their issue. Okay. So I think that's for the technical audience. And they're people too. Technology, it's about ones and zeros and various aspects of technology, but it's also a people business. It's all run, developed by humans, maintained by humans, and so on. And even the hackers, in some regards, they're humans as well. They might be using AI a little bit, but it's still driven by humans. So you have to adapt your style. Obviously, you're not going to be talking to the hackers. But, anyways, that's the technical side. With executives and other levels of management, or business stakeholders, you have to adapt your style. You have to give more analogies, more business impact in your communication. So, you might be talking about we have to implement EDR, we have to implement EDR, but they don't know what EDR is, right? So you have to talk in terms of that they will be able to understand. EDR is a technology that will help identify processes that are being run. And if there's ever malware executed on a laptop, we will see the whole trail of processes that were executed. Why is this important? It helps us to retrace the steps of a file came in through phishing, it got downloaded on the system, and then it triggered these various events. And this is important because if it had executed, it would impact this business process or this communication line and potentially bring, a 4 hour outage because of the impact it would have to the database or to the application server, to the web server. And so they're able to understand that more and then use a lot of analogies with executives.
Any
Use
any favorite
comments.
examples of analogies or metaphors?
I use automobiles a lot. One that I use a lot, and it's not my own. I stole it from somebody else, but I've been using it for years, is if it's a big project and you say, you're trying to maintain, say, a website, and you're also redeveloping it in the background, you don't want to take any outages. It's like changing the engine in a car that's driving down the highway. So I use analogies like that. Or if, using the brake, we have to put the brakes on this because of this and that reason, there's caution up ahead, or analogies
Sure.
about transmissions, various speeds. We have to maybe stay in second gear on this one, but then accelerate for something else. So
This is
automobiles
good.
is universal. Yeah,
Yeah, I like houses, but I like automobile ideas as well. I think it's a good idea.
yeah.
I want to go back to trust. So we spoke about trust for techies is to show the technical expertise. We kind of touch a bit on the executive part, but I think overall trust in my mind is the ability to show your stakeholders, your buyers, whatever it is. And again, as you mentioned, buyers can be internal. You're selling an idea, not actually a vendor or technology. You're selling an idea on the
Mhm.
project that you know what you're doing, you calculated the outcomes, this is the correct way to do it, and you repeating the process. I don't like golf, but I think golf is one of the sports that you
Mm.
can come and repeat and show that you can repeat what you do every time. So in this case as well, I can probably analogy of trust in golf that you continuously delivering.
Yeah. Well, first and foremost, Evgeny, I have no trust in my golf capabilities, but it's but it's good for an analogy. I totally get it. Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head on that one.
So what was it listening right now? If you starting in cyber or in general, how do you even start with trust?
For one, understand what you're doing. Okay, so you got to have the technical chops. I'm going to keep coming back to that concept as well. So you have to become, start as the beginner into intermediate and then the expert level or senior level. So that's the first thing because people need to have trust in your technical capabilities. But then you have to be able to explain your concepts. And it is not an easy thing for technical folks to do. So you have to work on it. Like I said, different levels require different communication styles, using the analogies if it's a technical audience. But the more important thing is, regardless of who you're communicating with, you have to frame what you're trying to explain. And a lot of technical individuals will just go off on a deep end, on a tangent about a particular thing. You have to, it's like anything, like writing a 5 paragraph essay or reading a book, or you have to start with the introduction. You got to get into your various points, start with the most important point, then work your way through. And then you have to have a concluding comment, and you have to try to wrap that all up in a short period of time. You don't want to be the only one talking on a meeting. And you, Evgeny, even though it's not relevant to today's discussion, I have to tell you about a little pet peeve in communication that I have observed happening everywhere, especially with remote work. People talk over each other. Everyone is clawing to get their point across, or something. They hear something and they want to know this is really important. They're not letting people finish their thought, and it breaks the communication up because it's a bunch of small little disjointed ideas that all come together. So there's an age old analogy that everybody uses. You have 2 ears and one mouth, and use them in that proportion. That is very important in communication.
You mentioned is not related, but I think it's actually related because it's related to active listening, and active listening is one of the soft skills. So if you're in a meeting and there's 5 or 10 people and you are talking, and I'm not listening because I'm only thinking about what I want to say, that I'm not actively listening, and it's a part of communication because in some cases people listening to somebody else, but in reality, they are formulating what they want to say when their
Correct.
turn come on, and they forget about other stuff. And it kind of brings me to the idea of what are the soft skills that are important for you? We just mentioned active listening in a way. What other one?
Active listening is the most important. Other ones that I like when people do when they're communicating with me is summarizing what I have said to explain their understanding. So, sometimes the very technical concepts, lots of different ideas are shared during a meeting. So it's important to summarize at the end, either through meeting minutes in a written format or verbally before the end of the call. Okay, so if I understood you correctly, Evgeny, today we are talking about communication styles to various audiences, and the takeaways are A, B, C, X, Y, Z. And I love it when people do that. And just as much as I love it, I try to do it for the individuals that I'm meeting with as well. Those are really good. Those are two really good soft skills. And then matching the tone is also important for me. Okay. Like we've said before, you have a different tone for executives than you do for technical audiences than you do for auditors and regulators. It's a different way of approaching it. I wouldn't want to just categorize it all as formal and less formal. It's not, it's a different
There's a
communication
lot.
style. Yeah, there's a
Yes.
lot to it. Yeah.
Yeah. So how is one building the skills you mentioned?
A lot through experience. Also, getting feedback. So if you have a manager or somebody that you look up to and they're part of that communication style, or even just in conversations with them, ask them for feedback. There's nothing wrong with it. You're only going to get better. That's one, asking for feedback. If you see somebody that communicates really well and the way that they express their concepts, even on a YouTube video, steal
Mhm.
shamelessly the way that they are expressing themselves. Try to match somebody who's kind of similar to the way that the industry that you're in. You're not going to pick Tony Robbins for communication. You're never going to achieve that. But something a little bit closer to earth for you. So steal shamelessly. And one thing that I like, not everybody's going to have access to it, but AI note takers are really good because you can see if you expressed your concepts very well at the end of it, you can review. So I'm a big fan of doing transcripts during meetings in a secure way, of course. You don't want to use a free AI note taker because you never know where that's going to end up. But if you're a Microsoft Office 365 shop, you use Copilot. If you're a Google, you use whatever the equivalent is for note taking. I find those really good because you could see if you expressed your concepts properly. And then if you don't have that, take meeting minutes and send them and solicit feedback. If this is not your understanding of what we discussed, please let me know right away. Can I tell you how many times you've Evgeny? I have sent meeting minutes, and the individuals I was talking to wrote back saying, No, I actually understood it a little bit different. And then had we not done that, we would have gone off and say not met for 2 weeks, and we would have been marching in different directions. Yeah.
You mentioned remote work several times, and you just mentioned minutes as well. So when we face to face having a meeting and we summarizing the meeting, it's probably much easier. People also less
Mhm.
distracted. How has the soft skills of communication evolved or changed during the last 5 years with remote work? What's good, what's bad?
Yeah, you can't read body language, especially if you're not on camera. So communication, verbal communication is even more important. You have to, if you're talking about on meetings like Teams or Zoom, Google Meets, whatever, and the camera is on, then it's sort of like being in person, not as good, but I mean, it's still there. But if you're talking about Teams messages, Slack messages, whatever messenger that you're using to communicate, you have to spend more time framing the idea through this. And so we relied on it when everybody was in the office more pre-COVID, but messaging has become a main way to communicate nowadays. I personally would rather do communication through a messaging app like Teams or a collaboration app, Teams in Slack versus sending an email because it's more synchronous. Emails are asynchronous. You send a concept, you wait 4 hours, somebody responds. With messaging, people usually have more of a sense of urgency. So, anyways, as it relates to communication, yeah, you have to frame your concepts a little bit more. So you have to take more time to think through how to get the idea across and then how you want to be responded to. And you have to maybe break up your ideas. You can't say, I have 4 questions for you, one, two, three, four. You might send one question, get a response, and say during the initial one, I have additional questions, but I want to cover this first because we might have a different question based on your response. So these types of tricks, and again, whether it's written through messaging or online meetings, you have to speak to the audience in the way that they're going to understand the best. So just looping back to executives, techies, and other parties.
Was there anyone in your life that was a model for you or really impact how you adapted communication and learning style or soft skills?
Well, I'm going to tell you. So there is one particular meeting that I remember, and it's actually you, Evgeny. So a long time ago, when we were both in different roles, you, Evgeny, worked for an organization that serviced the organization that I worked for, and times were a little tough. We were questioning whether the services that we were paying for were up to snuff and whether they were well thought out. And you, Evgeny, was not directly, you had not been assigned to us. I think you covered multiple accounts, but you got brought in to bridge the gap and to tone it down. And so you talked to me in technical sense, which I like because I'm very technical. So we covered the whole technical way, but the way that you communicated during that meeting, I felt the trust at the end of it that I trusted your organization. It was about 10 years ago, I would think, and you were brought in for that specific reason. You achieved that goal. So technical, you talked to me the way that I wanted to be talked to. You addressed other people in the room the way that they could all understand. Luckily, it was all techies in the room, but at that time, I had to communicate that message up to individuals that were not techies, and I was able to do it by just recollecting the way that you addressed it. So it was a lot of what we discussed today, but you were one person that stands out, and I always think about that, not just because we're doing a podcast today, but I remember feeling from frustration before the meeting to a warm feeling of, okay, we're being taken care of at the end of it. So kudos to you.
Thank you. Thank you. Didn't expect this. Thank you very much. I want to kind of talk about interviewing style because we
Okay.
hiring people as part of being executives, but in many cases we get hired, and also many people that listening to us right now will be hired. And especially with the age of AI, we talk a lot, I think, about the communication style and soft skills. And I want to ask your opinion. What's important to show? What's important to ask during interview?
So I still like the very old one that we've all learned very like when you became a hiring manager. Tell me about a time that you changed someone's mind or someone changed your mind and the reasons why you were able to change their mind or they were able to change your mind. So I love that question and I still use it from a soft skills and especially during the interview. So the way I say it to people when I'm getting them ready is have a bunch of stories and examples for soft skills related questions when you're going through the interview process. And have about five and you're going to pull, it's almost like it's in your tool belt. And when the question comes, you're going to pull that one out. But you can't fabricate it. It has to be something real. It doesn't even have to be you that were able to convince someone or change their mind. You can think of a situation where somebody effectively communicated and say, and I like to model that in the way that I communicate or the way that I solve problems. That's one. In individuals, for soft skills, I like to look for curiosity and individuals that reflect on the topics. There's something, I'm not sure where I heard it, but when you're giving a speech or you're doing an interview, you don't want to leave a gap. Like you think, oh, I don't want to pause. I want to be able to respond right away. But that's the adrenaline in your body telling you, making you nervous when you're up on stage or in an interview and you pause for 5 seconds, no one's going to say, hey, are you still with us? No, but in your head, it's like 25 seconds, 5 times longer. It's okay to pause and think through your concept or to say to them, I'm trying to think of the best example. Just give me a moment. Now, you can't take a minute to think of that example, but take a pause. So I like reflection and then have empathy. So if the person I'm interviewing has empathy and is able to understand, why we need to do stuff and is able to articulate it, that's a big bonus. And then if you're really unsure and you've got two candidates that are both neck to neck from a technical capability, and you want to see their soft skills and how they're going to jive with the team, do a role play of a tough conversation or a tough situation and how they would be able to handle it. So, do a mini tabletop exercise, something along those lines. So
Is there
that's what I like to rely on.
this is a very good one. You mentioned being scared, and it's definitely the important part. I'm a second-time immigrant. I remember the time when I was really afraid to speak. I will be speaking very fast, and it took me different podcast what and how. But so let's say somebody comes to the interview, and you see the English is not perfect. You see there is like a spark in their eyes. You see there is intelligence, but because they're afraid, the communication style is maybe not adjusted, not aligned right now. If there's any tricks you do to, okay, I want to get inside you. I want you to
Mm.
open up and talk to me because I want to see, are you scared? Are you just scared? And if I lower this part, I will able to understand that we can work with you, or you're not going to be a good team player. Any tricks?
Yeah, no, those are good. That's a good one. That's thought provoking. So, you said two things. You asked me one question, but you said two things that I want to touch on. You don't have to let the other side know, say, the hiring manager or even if you're giving a speech in front of a room, you don't have to tell them you're nervous. They know you're nervous. They've been there before. And I see that all the time, whether it's a wedding speech, a eulogy, or, to a conference room. Everybody knows it's nerve-wracking to be up there. Everyone knows that public speaking is up there with our fear of death, right? Maybe even higher. So you don't have to say it. That's the one thing. I've just observations that I've made through my many years. Okay. So in order to get them to speak, ask questions. Ask questions of them. Like you don't have to, not like an interrogation, but ask questions that are going to drive them to explain the concepts that that are in their mind, even if they don't speak English properly. That's another thing. You don't have to say, my English is not that good. Say it once at the beginning, but I will do my best to explain the concepts, and then you can say, I'm working on my English and taking this program in the evening. That sets the tone. Okay, now we know I'm a intelligent individual, but my communication in the English language is not as up to par as maybe others. But okay, so that establishes the base. And then as the hiring manager, when you're interviewing, just start asking a lot of questions. Okay, oh, can you explain that a little more? And don't worry about breaking up, like build the trust with them as well. Don't worry about how you explain it. If I don't understand, I'll ask you to pause and explain another question. But asking questions is one of the most important ways to find out about an individual. And not just for interviews, it's actually for just about everything. You can get a lot of information by just asking why, how, when, and so on.
Great. Is there anything like one thing you can recommend for people to do in communication?
Listen more than they talk. There's times to talk and there's times to listen. The majority of the time, it's to listen. You have to know when, you have to do more listening. And it's amazing how much trust you can build while communicating in your personal life with your partner, with your wife, with your husband, girlfriends, internal stakeholders, customers, by just listening to what they have to say and not going in saying, "Oh, I've got the answer. Okay, we could wrap this whole thing up in 5 minutes. I know you booked a 2 hour meeting. I've got the answer for you." Listen, because the question that might have come in through email or the meeting agenda for the meeting might be very different than when you get on in the first 2 minutes. And they will feel, if you come in and say, "I've got it all solved," okay, they might actually feel offended that you haven't taken the 5 minutes for them to frame the situation, and then you're already offering a solution. There is a time for you to talk and offer the solution, but it's not until after you've listened to the problem.
This
So
is a
I know
very good one. Yes.
I think it's probably common with all your guests. Everyone's going to say listening, 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 but I am a big advocate of it.
You kind of dialed in an interesting point is if you know the answer, still listen, because in many cases, people think differently and people want to actually express their opinion. And this
Yes.
is the important part related to respect and active listening. So, yes, you already know the answer, but you need to feel the other person that they actually want to speak up. They want to finish
Yes.
their idea and give
Yes.
them this 5, 10 minutes. You will get more trust, you will get more
Hmm.
respect and better rapport with these people as well. So, thank you. This is a very good part. So, let's summarize
Yes.
what we discussed today. We spoke a lot about trust and how
Yes.
important this and we want to build trust differently with different people. Some is very technical, the other are with analogy and execution and business values.
Hmm.
We also spoke about finding a role model if you're not sure how to behave until you find yourself. And it could be many different people. The question where you want to go with this. I like the idea about AI note taker to kind of reflect what can be done and answer. You also mentioned that it's important to listen to people and that you like when people reflect on their ideas and not rushing. And I think it's summarizing the conversation today. Let me know if I miss anything.
No, you've been practicing active listening very well. That's pretty good. That's all the points that we talked about. If I could just leave with one other thing, that I think a lot of people will get value out of, and we're all guilty of it. So you have to do, okay, is distractions. Okay. So even in this short time, I silenced everything before this podcast. I put my phone on do not disturb. And if you're on an important meeting and you have Teams messages, Slack messages, or whatever collaboration tool you're using, and it's distracting you, there's nothing worse than asking a question about a topic that somebody just covered because you were distracted looking at an email or a message. So when you're in an important meeting, it should be in every meeting, try to silence the distractions and make the person feel that you think the conversation is important. And by not having to get them to repeat something or asking a question about something they've covered. So just that's just my final point as it relates to today.
With multiple screens we all having at home, we always have another something. So if yes, if you remove the distraction, it's much better and easier. Thank you. George, thank you very much. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
If people want to connect with you, what's the best way to do it?
Through LinkedIn, they can find me on LinkedIn, George Plytas. There's not many of me. It's not a common name, so should be able to find me.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure.
Okay. All right. Likewise. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening to the Power of Soft Skills in Sales. And remember, the best sales teams aren't just great talkers and deeply technical. They know how to listen, ask questions, guide, and connect on a human level. Enjoy the episode? Please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who benefit. For more tips and insights, visit softskillstech.ca or .com. Until next time, keep sharpening your soft skills and unlocking your full potential. Check out the next episode and subscribe to our newsletter. See you soon!